On this exciting episode, she's as cold as ice. She's willing to sacrifice her husband's underwater navigational device. Okay, I gotta work on that last part. It's a first draft, folks. It's Perry Mason, Season 4, Episode 17, The Case of the Wintry Wife. Welcome to the Perry Pod. I'm your humble host, Jonathan Searcy. My purpose, pretty simple, provide an audio companion to every episode of television's greatest legal drama, Perry Mason. Each episode, we give you a summary of the plot. We compare plots with the Earl Stanley Gardner novel if the episode was an adaptation. We give you trivia, reveal the episode's theme, revel in a Perry proverb, that's a pearl of wisdom from the man himself, and then head to the water cooler, where just like Perry, Della, and Paul, we can discuss the ins and outs of our fave legal cruise adventures. But first, say it with me, to the law library! Each time we visit the law library, we discuss a legal conundrum from Perry's case that helps us set future courtroom precedents. In this trip to the law library, we consider contract law. Early in this episode, inventor Walter Randall has his invention snatched up by Nortronics. He's given the task by the Nortronics boss of having his lawyer draw up the agreement.
You have your lawyer draw up an agreement the way we outlined it, and you call me at Nortronics. We'll set up the field test just as soon as you're ready.
So Walter heads to Perry, and it takes Perry a while. Why? What kinds of things would have been in this agreement? Let us count the ways. We're not going to be exhaustive here, but frankly, it looks like Perry's exhausted when he's done with this thing. So we do want to give you a sense of why. The contract will, 1, spell out the parties involved. 2, provide legal definitions of all the contract's key terms. 3, include what the object of the agreement in the contract actually involves. The device, its patents, intellectual property. 4, get to the purchase price and payment terms. 5, talk about a payment schedule, including royalties or ongoing payments for continued use and development. 6, name warranties and representations to consider. The proof that Walter owns the invention or has the authority to sell it. 7, name some stuff about confidentiality, though the fact that Walter blabs about this deal right away means it's not good. This part won't be super detailed. Number 8, practice due diligence. Note that the corporation was running tests even after this oral agreement. So this says how long Nortronics, the corporation in question, has to conduct further research and test the device to confirm it meets their needs, etc. 9, work out intellectual property rights. 10, identify exclusivity. Is there going to be a non-compete clause? 11, identify indemnity. What if someone sues over the device? Who's liable? Number 12, name termination clauses that affect how Walter or Nortronics could part ways on the deal. Number 13, specify governing laws and dispute resolution protocols. And number 14, specify how to make amendments. That is, if you want to alter this contract that it just took so long to write. Does that seem like a lot? Because it does to me. And that's why Perry's in the office late, making Della and Paul wait on dinner. With that in mind, let's get to the plot of this episode. The Case of the Wintry Wife. Walter, he's an inventor, and he's got ship-level tech. Will his invention work?
It's pretty fantastic, Mr. Randall. This underwater sounding equipment could revolutionize maritime navigation.
Is Nortronics interested?
Yes, definitely. If the field tests work out, you've got yourself the deal you asked for.
Walter's first elated call is to someone other than his wife, a Phyllis Hudson who works for Walter's wife. Ruh-roh.
Phyllis, they're going to buy it. They're going to buy it. It's everything we ever dreamed of.
Oh, Walt. Walt, I don't know whether to laugh or cry.
At home, Walter spills the beans. He's got cash and he wants freedom. Laura, wintry as she is, ain't having it.
Laura, it's no go. We haven't had a marriage for 10 years. We both know that. Laura, I want my freedom too.
A divorce?
Yes.
Very well, Walter. You may have your divorce.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Over my dead body, you'll get a divorce.
Soon Laura is conspiring to blow hubby's project sky high, using a little blackmail and her brother-in-law while she's at it.
Laura, I can't do this. Suppose someone's in the building.
You can't. Well, then I suppose that you're prepared to go to jail. Oh, come now, Roger. No one's ever going to find out about that little contraption of yours. Wrap it up for me.
Walter has the good sense to call in Perry.
You know my wife, I believe.
I met her only once. She's an invalid, isn't she?
That's an impression that Laura does her best to create. 10 years ago on our honeymoon, she almost froze to death in a blizzard.
She isn't ill then?
She has a slight circulatory trouble, but nothing serious beyond being a little cold all the time. Just cold. Perpetually cold.
The next night, Phyllis has plans for her boss. It involves milk while she delivers a package to her boyfriend. But two can play at deceit. At the end of a very long scene with seemingly endless noir lighting and trumpet blasts, Phyllis gets a bump on the head from Laura, and then things go boom. Perry, Della, Paul, they're all up late, waiting on Perry to finish this gargantuan contract, when in walks Phyllis.
Mr. Mason. Mr. Mason.
Phyllis says she came straight from the bombing, but a quick trip to the home of Laura and Walter reveals that Laura's gone to that final winter, and Phyllis may have something to hide.
Well, I want Miss Phyllis Hudson for some questioning tonight. I'd like to take her downtown with me.
Lieutenant, what's going on here? What are you talking about?
Mrs. Laura Randall was drugged with sleeping pills so she wouldn't wake up. Then somebody turned on the gas heater without bothering to light it, unfortunately, and killed her.
Perry unearths the bombing brother-in-law, but Tragg and Deputy DA Victor still think it was Phyllis and Walter, until Walter begins overacting.
Kill Laura? The whole thing's incredible. Phyllis wouldn't hurt anybody, much less kill. No, it's impossible.
That really was convincing. You see, in good news, bad news theater, the good news is that Walter saved the device and will sell it sooner rather than later. The bad news is that he wasn't available to commit the crime, which means Phyllis is holding the bag.
Well, Randall, you may have an alibi, but we've got Phyllis Hudson nailed.
No! She couldn't!
She not only could, but I'm prepared to prove, and in court, she's the only person who could have killed her.
In court, Perry goes after Laura's brother-in-law, the man who once had a cozy little place in Fresno. You know the man, but provoke, and he just might overact too. What's gotten into these people?
Why not a third crime to cover up the first two? Why not murder? The murder of Laura Randall.
No, I didn't kill her.
A private detective verifies that the only person who left the house around the time of the murder was Phyllis Hudson. Uh-oh.
Continuing, Mr. Penner, I just want to get one thing straight. Now, all the time you were watching this house, could anybody have entered or left it without your noticing?
No, sir, they couldn't.
Then from the time that Laura Randall returned at 8:44 until almost 10 o'clock, when Bruce Sheridan unlocked that door and let himself inside, was there anyone at all, Mr. Penner, with the exception of Phyllis Hudson, who went in or out of that house?
No, sir, just her.
But Perry has a solution. What if it was all done by remote control? Come in, Paul. Do you read, Paul?
Hello, this is Paul Drake. I read you loud and clear.
Will you tell us where you are, please?
I'm with pilot Nate Tiger. We're in a helicopter flying at 5,000 feet, approximately 40 miles from the courthouse. We're ready when you are, Perry.
May I direct the court's attention to the gas heater? All right, Paul, I'm starting the countdown. 10, 9, 8.
That means the criminal was Bruce Sheridan. Tell us why you're actually a hero, Bruce.
Yes. I killed her. I had to. She poisoned everybody's life she touched. Destroyed them. She was going to destroy me. Take away everything I had. Everything I'd ever worked for. Funny, isn't it? Roger, Amelia, Walter, Phyllis, me. Any one of us had reason to kill her. But I guess the others couldn't do it.
In the denouement, there's no Perry, and look at Paul over here bragging.
It's all pretty obvious.
Well, anyway, it's all pretty obvious now.
Now, let's get trivial, shall we? Each trivia section, I give you 3 takeaways. A Paul is a subject worth investigating more. Adela is a deep dive on an actor or actress who guest starred on the episode. And a Perry is something we learn about our intrepid hero. Our Paul for this episode involves Laura's circulation problem.
But nothing serious beyond being a little cold all the time. Just cold.
Now, Walter wasn't pointing to his forehead when he said the word cold, but you sort of got that drift, right? She's cold is a metaphor for her emotions. Get it? She's emotionally cold. But my question is this. What, if anything, is Laura's actual medical diagnosis? Pauls, let us know what you find. Our Della for this episode is Robert Carnes, Deputy D.A. Victor Chamberlain.
All right, Trag, book him. Forgery, grand theft, larceny, suspicion of arson. That ought to be enough to hold him for a while.
Here's 10 about Bob. Number 1, born Kentucky, 1917. He works in radio there. Number 2, then goes and serves in World War II, where he's part of Maurice Evans's famous acting troupe. You know, the ones that perform Shakespeare for soldiers in the Pacific. Number 3, post-war, goes to Hollywood. He works with the Actors Lab. That comes back to haunt him. More about that in a bit. And then gets on as a contract player with 20th Century Fox. He's in Gentleman's Agreement. He gets uncredited roles in films like Best Years of Our Lives, Miracle on 34th Street. He seems poised for prominence. Number 4. Then it comes out that the Actors Lab, dun dun dun, had communist ties. Eesh, lots of blackmailing casualties there. Go read that Wikipedia article. The LA Times obit on Carnes says he got blacklisted and basically didn't act until the late 50s and the advent of large-scale television production. Number 5. Oh, sweet irony. Carnes later starred in productions of the drama Are You Now or Have You Ever Been? About the McCarthy hearings. Number 6. Okay, so after Carnes is blacklisted, he becomes a cabinet maker in the interim, working and making cabinets for some of the same actors he was once co-starring with. Number 7, dude had a ton of TV credits in the late 50s, 60s, and 70s. Gunsmoke, Bonanza, Cheyenne, Twilight Zone, The Waltons, Rockford Files, MASH, Streets of San Francisco, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, Emergency, Andy Griffith Show, The Fugitive, The Untouchables, and of course, Perry Mason. Note, this episode is the final appearance in the series of D.A. Victor Chamberlain. It wasn't supposed to be. Hamilton Berger was back. Bill Tallman was back in the gang. But Bill Tallman had an emergency appendectomy. For 2 consecutive episodes, we've seen Robert Carnes as D.A. Victor Chamberlain. He came in out of the bullpen. Number 8, Carnes stayed involved in the theater. You can find his stint at the San Francisco Actors Workshop, highly touted, more Shakespeare, including Twelfth Night and Julius Caesar. Number 9, his wife Doris was the art director for the Dickens Christmas Fair in San Francisco. Apparently, this is still a thing, and it's a pretty big deal. They had 1 daughter together. Number 10, Carnes died of a heart attack at age 62 in 1979. Our Perry for this episode involves our man making Paul and Della wait for dinner yet again. Here's Paul.
Come on, Perry, let's go. It's late and I'm starving.
Just a side note, Jim Davidson, in his Perry Mason book, reports this episode took nearly a month to complete because not only was Bill Tallman out, they wrote him out of the script, but following a 2-week vacation, Raymond Burr called in sick for nearly 3 weeks. No wonder Perry wasn't in that final scene. The theme for this episode is technology. Look, people, we can design a machine to open our garage door, but we can't figure out how to motorize the human heart. Electronics all over the episode. It can help, it can harm. You can navigate underwater. You can use an alarm clock for a bomb too, though. The machines that do what you program them to do tell us more about who programmed them than the technology himself, and the messiness of human emotions, inexplicable. Think about that speech that Bruce gives at the end of the courtroom scene. All of these people in this case had reason to kill Laura, but only he did it. That was his choice. He didn't have to. He wasn't programmed. He apparently wasn't wise in business. He overexpanded and didn't have the goods for the expansion, and he's definitely morally unwise. Hey, hint, Bruce, murder, never the solution, even if you do it by remote control. Now, let's hear a Perry proverb. I love this tete-a-tete that Perry has with D.A. Chamberlain. Chamberlain is explaining why Phyllis Hudson committed the crime, and Perry gives his proverb in the form of a biting rhetorical question.
I suppose you gentlemen have a motive to go along with all this. The best. Phyllis Hudson was in love with Laura Randall's husband.
If you're going to be wrong, why not be consistently wrong?
Yeah! D.A. Chamberlain, be consistent and wrong. Love it. And guess what, Perry? These D.A. yahoos, Berger, Carnes, Sampson, they're consistently wrong in this show. Now it's time to grab a swig from the water cooler.
You know, there is one thing I don't understand. Go on, Paul.
Each episode in the water cooler, I give you deleted scenes, outtakes from the script that didn't make the episode's final cut. Unofficial legal counsel for the pod, Tom Wiltshire, contributes 3 for this episode. Number 1, when Perry turns on his courtroom radio, the song Evil Woman by ELO blasts. Number 2, when Perry radios Drake in the chopper. Drake is eating a submarine sandwich, which he bobbles out the door, and we can hear Drake wistfully smiles. He says, "Hey, I can see my house from up here." And number 3, Drake hits the switch controlling the gas valve, and we get a montage of every garage door in LA opening and closing. Thanks, Tom! Our Paul prompt from the last episode involves this cryptic line from Art Schnooknick Loring Lamont.
A wolf in clothing made from a British sheep.
Karen wrote in to talk about the Anglophilia that swept men's fashions in the mid-60s. A great recommendation, Karen. You can check that out with a simple Google search. Aunt Mai had the hookup by identifying Savile Row, a street in London known principally for its traditional bespoke tailoring for men, as the likely reference Loring was making. Bingo. Great work, Pauls. Now, let's hear some listener letters. It's always fun to get a YouTube comment from Banana Bob. I earned a laugh last episode with the line, "It's the I'm okay, you're okay corral." I believe I swiped that joke from the television show Taxi. I think Andy Kaufman delivers that line. I earned the crying emoji from Banana Bob, though. I was proud. Tom Wiltshire wrote in to say, "Love the podcast. Appreciate your humor and deft language. Lines like, 'Be still my beatnik heart,' just crack me up. I'm sad. We're almost halfway through the episodes." Thanks a lot, Tom. And then Tom went ahead and pointed this out about the case of the Wintry wife. Dr. Fox testifies that high levels of carbon monoxide were detected in Laura's blood, causing her death. Illuminating gas does contain high levels of CO2. It was a 19th century utility, mostly replaced by natural gas and electricity in LA by World War II. Natural gas does not contain CO2. It seems peculiar that the Randall home would be supplied with illuminating gas. The story would have worked as well with plain old natural gas. It's a good point, Tom. Good deep dive. Intriguing. Also, I've been meaning to mention two things. One, my dad asked me why I didn't mention that James Coburn, our focus, Ardella, in the case of the envious editor, survived in his appearance in The Great Escape. He's one of the few escapees who makes it. It's a great question. There's no good excuse. If there's some bit of trivia about somebody we focus on in the Della section, send it on. I love that stuff. Number two, I watched From Here to Eternity a couple of weeks ago, and it has tons of Perry Mason related guest stars. There's Robert Carnes, Philip Ober, John Bryant, John Dennis, Willis Bauchi, Don Dubbins, probably more. So here's my question. What films have you seen that have the most people who also starred in Perry? I'm sure trivia maven Nancy knows this one like the back of her hand. I don't know the answer. If you've got candidates, if there are movies you like more because they have more Perry-related actors in them, let me know. As always, I'd love to hear from you. Do you have a comment on this episode or the pod in general? You can always drop me a line at theperrypod@gmail.com. Next episode, it's a Carl Held sighting, ladies and gentlemen. Carl with a K. See him before he turned into David Gideon, please. We've got your Held right here, folks. It's the case of the Angry Dead Man. Join us, won't you? Until then, this is Jonathan Searcy saying, keep on walking that Park Avenue beat!